Let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks' entire season is going to focus on the success of one rookie, Luka Doncic. I mean Trae Young. But the Hawks traded Luka to get Young, so the two will be inexplicably tied for the rest of their careers, and Atlanta is betting Young will pan out to be the next generational three-point shooter, and anything short of that will be a loss for a franchise deep in the heart of a rebuild. There is nowhere to go but up for these Hawks. A devastating Gordon Hayward injury 5 minutes into the season last year derailed Boston, but Gordon is now back alongside Kyrie, Tatum, Brown, and Horford. The ceiling is the roof for the Boston faithful, who have arguably the best NBA coach steering their ship. An injury-free season for Boston should result in an Eastern Conference Finals appearance and potentially a trip to the Finals. With a lot of talented wings and guards on the roster, I'm excited to see what lineups Coach Steven draws up to keep all of his players happy and hungry. If you could name 5 players on the Brooklyn Nets roster, you are either on the team or a freaky big fan. Either way, this team has become the NBA equivalent of the island of misfit toys, but don't let that fool you for a second. This team is no longer a laughingstock and is definitely headed in the right direction, albeit slowly. D'Angelo Russell, Kenneth Reed, Spencer Dinwiddie, this team is comprised of the supporting cast you wish your team had. The only issue is they don't have those 2 or 3 All-Stars you need to really compete. Don't expect a playoff appearance just yet from these guys. There is no greater punishment for a franchise than being stuck in NBA purgatory, and that is exactly where the Hornets find themselves for the 1,000th year in a row somehow. 28-year-old Kemba Walker is in a contract year which places the Hornets franchise at a crossroads for their future. Did they let their best player walk and rebuild, or bring him back and shoot for at best the 4 or 5 seed in the East, with no chance at advancing beyond that? If the goal is championship, you tear it down. With Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., Chris Dunn, and Zach LaVine, the Bulls have a sneaky good, under-the-radar young core. Now that's coded speak to say this team is not going to win anything this year, but seeing how Carter and Markkanen mesh together is going to be a key sign for Chicago moving forward. I am not sold on Fred Hoiberg being a good coach by any stretch of the imagination, but without any expectations or pressure to win this year, I see him staying for the foreseeable future. The second post-LeBron era begins in Cleveland, this time with Kevin Love at the helm. This one could get ugly, folks, and there is a real possibility that the Cavaliers could go from a finals appearance to the NBA lottery just from the departure of one LeBron James, which would be enough, in my opinion, to retroactively give him the MVP award for last year. A late season trade last season gave the Cavs a much-needed injection of youth, and that youth is going to be key for them moving forward. In a last-ditch effort to save his job, the Pistons' former coach and GM, Stan Van Gundy, traded the farm for Blake Griffin in a 5-year contract. The results were the NBA lottery and Van Gundy exiting stage left. New coach Dwayne Casey has an interesting roster to work with, and for Detroit to make a push for the bottom of the East, he's going to have to create a world where Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond can not only coexist but thrive together. The Victor Oladipo era in Indiana is here. After bursting onto the scene last year and nearly leading his team to a Game 7 win over LeBron in the playoffs, this Pacer team is coming back ready for another shot at the crown in an open Eastern Conference. Like most years, expect Indiana to stay relatively under the radar, but that does not mean they are a team to sleep on. If anything, this team deserves to be in the same conversation with the Raptors, 76ers, and Celtics of the Eastern Conference elite. Dwayne Wade's last dance is here, and man will it be sad when we have to finally say goodbye to one of the best this league has ever seen. Outside of Wade's farewell tour, the best thing that could happen to this team on the floor this year is if they're able to execute on a trade for Jimmy Butler to improve their roster. With or without Jimmy, head coach Eric Spoelstra is going to have his work cut out for him trying to find ways to use their highest paid player in a world that doesn't accommodate traditional centers anymore. And there is no timetable for Dion Waiters' return. The Bucks team will go as far as Giannis can take them. Giannis is a well-rounded supporting cast, and the Bucks roster lends itself to do some intriguing lineups and matchup problems, but at the end of the day, Giannis' dominance will determine whether this Bucks team finds themselves in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference playoff standings or making a surprise run to the conference finals. The second the Greek Freak has a competent jump shot, the Eastern Conference landscape is going to shift Milwaukee's way. With a new coach on board, the future is bright in the mecca of basketball, but there are still a few steps before the Knicks can really start thinking about rings. Porzingis does not have a timetable for his return from a torn ACL, so new rookie Kevin Knox will have a great opportunity to shine early in the bright lights of New York City with the likes of Enes Kanter and Frankie Nicotine. This season for the Knicks is all about proving to upcoming free agents that they are a destination and a place where people want to play with Porzingis and Knox. The Orlando Magic continue to have one of the most bizarre rosters in the NBA, with literally zero three-point shooting or ways to spread the floor in a league where some teams' entire roster and goal is to have three-point shooting. After locking up star Aaron Gordon to a 4-year deal, the Magic hope the addition of Mo Bamba in the draft can shift this team into more of the young aspiring talent phase of rebuilding rather than the bottom-dwelling status of we have no idea what we're doing phase. The 76ers were god-awful for several years, and you know what it got them? Two franchise-changing talents in Simmons and Embiid. Their roster did not change much over the offseason, but everyone now has another year under their belt, and we're led to believe that former first overall pick Markelle Fultz has fixed his broken jump shot. There's a very real chance this team makes an NBA Finals appearance this year, which would not surprise them. The Raptors were destined to lose to LeBron in the playoffs just like they historically always have, but that team was still the first overall seed in the East and just swapped out DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. Now, the health of Kawhi is still a question mark for the moment, and the Raptors let go of their Coach of the Year, Dwayne Casey, so while it isn't a lock for them to finish at the top of the East again, they certainly will be in the hunt all year, and anything short of a Eastern Conference Finals appearance would be considered a failure. The Washington Wizards added Dwight Howard to the roster this offseason, and that's about all that's new and exciting for the Wizards. John Wall and Bradley Beal are another year older, and while Otto Porter is a very good piece, it's hard to imagine a world where you can win a championship with Otto Porter as your third best player. The Wizards most likely are going to be in that mix for that 4 to 6 seed in the East, just like they have been the past 3 years.